Before we jump into today's video, I want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Warhammer Age of Sigmar. There has never been a better time to jump in and play Age of Sigmar than right now with the new release of Age of Sigmar 3rd Edition. The game has an incredibly fun and action-packed rule set, which is something that I am all for. One of my favorite things about this hobby is that there are just so many different ways to enjoy it. While I'm all about the game and more than a little competitive, I'll be honest, my buddy Brian loves to build, convert, and paint, and is even looking into entering into some local painting competitions himself. And then my other buddy Billy, he's all about the lore, with the Fire Slayers being a huge obsession for him. But the cool thing is that we can all still have our secret little Discord channel where we all get to share and talk about the things that we each enjoy the most. Now, if you want to learn more about Age of Sigmar and how to best get started, simply put, you cannot beat the new starter sets, which come in 3 different variations, with the Warrior set, which is what I chose, the Harbinger set, or the Extremist set. Your starter set is going to have absolutely everything you could want, need, or hope for to jump in and just get playing right away, including the rulebook, a battlefield map, which is a particularly nice touch, dice, rulers, and 2 different armies featuring the Stormcast Eternals and the Cruel Boys. So you can play with a friend, a child, like I plan on doing, or a significant other right away. I'll throw a link down in the description box below this video so you guys can go and check it out and snag a copy for yourselves. Thank you, Age of Sigmar, for being a part of the Taking 20 team. Help! One of my players has totally broken my D&D game. Oh no! I accidentally broke my campaign by giving my players a crazy powerful item. One of my D&D players is constantly polymorphing into dinosaurs, and they've totally broken my game. I have no idea what to do about it. Okay, Dungeon Masters, let's be honest. Most of us, if not all, have been there before. I get it. Dungeons and Dragons campaigns can be fickle things, and even the best 5th edition campaign in the world is subject to getting blasted apart and broken by clever D&D players, or sometimes even Dungeon Master mistakes. But don't worry, no matter how broken your Dungeons and Dragons campaign or Soulbound or Pathfinder campaign is, I've got a few tips that will hopefully help you get your game back on track. Also, as a reminder, we have an incredible Discord community in the Taking 20 Discord channel, which has a call for aid section as well as several places to find a game and a lot more. So if you're looking for even more advice after this video, I'll throw a link to it down below in the description of this video, as they are in all videos. So yeah, see you over there. Come hang out with us. Okay, now the first tip I have is what I'm going to call the assessment. This is the second most important step in addressing a huge power imbalance in your D&D 5e campaign. I'll get to the most important tip here in just a moment. But this part of the process is easy to skip over. But if you really want to fix your game, you need to set aside 5-10 minutes to carefully assess what the core issue is. Now, I used a word there that I'll repeat: the core issue. We had this thing in sales when I used to train people how to be professional salesmen and saleswomen that we called the true objection. Now, while I could go literally on for 10 hours on sales techniques, because I actually did, 10 hours of training your first week at our company with just me and a whiteboard, poor bastards. Anyways, look, the point of the true objection and how all of this relates to running a D&D game is this. A true objection is the real issue at hand, not the fake excuse on the surface. For example, someone might tell me that they didn't want to buy insert X product from me because they, quote, I don't like black. Okay, that's fine. So the reason the sales process stopped is because I didn't have the right product. No problem. All I needed to do was just find the right product, and then the sales process could continue. That's called overcoming the true objection. So, taking all of that information in, let's slide over back behind the Dungeon Master screen and apply the same concept there. To find our core issue, we first need to realize the why, not the what. Okay? You might tell me the issue that's ruining your game is the Amulet of the Plains that you accidentally gave your players. Okay, why. The necklace is the what, but why is it ruining or breaking your campaign? Because I've seen an Amulet of the Plains break entire campaigns, but in different ways. And understanding the core issue is the key to overcoming it and, quote, fixing your campaign. So is the issue that your party is using it like a get out of jail free card during combat? And if they start to get close to death, they just flee the fight too easily? Okay. Then the core issue there is that your party no longer has stakes in combat. There's nothing seriously threatening them. Or is it because your party used the item to jump around to other planes on a whim, thus ignoring your story? Then the core issue there might be that the players, not the characters, are disinterested in the current trajectory of the campaign and are unmotivated to see its conclusion. Or maybe the players are just more interested in the Feywild than they are in the 19th campaign along the Sword Coast, aka the core issue is that the players want a different style of game or backdrop than what you are currently providing. Hell, maybe the players just think using the amulet is freaking cool, and perhaps they just want to feel powerful by using interesting magic items for once. By understanding the why when it comes to a broken campaign, we can better understand the how when it comes to addressing it. Is the druid abusing wild shape and polymorph to soak unbelievable amounts of damage and combats are feeling like a slog? Okay, fine. Then the core issue is that the group no longer feels challenged when simply trading big bags of hit points with enemies. By understanding the core issue here, we can work on it. Now we might know we might need to start introducing different types of enemies. Or maybe it's as simple as just creating issues and problems for the group that don't involve trading big bags of hit points. The point is, just saying this item or this player ability is breaking my campaign isn't enough information. What we need to do as Dungeon Masters is stop and break down what those items are doing when the players use them and why they seem so broken in those specific scenarios that we think that is breaking the game. Once we understand the core issue, we can then come up with a game plan and a strategy on how to perhaps prevent it from continuing to break the campaign. Okay, now on to tip number 2, and this is the most important thing I'm going to say in this entire video, and that's to avoid going to the dark side. Don't be an adversarial dungeon master. An adversarial dungeon master is that DM that treats their Dungeons and Dragons 5e game like they are playing against the players and the party. And simply put, this is the worst way to try and address a campaign you perceive as being broken. To me, adversarial dungeon masters are no different than players who cheat their dice rolls. Like, whenever I see it or hear about it, all I can think is like, why? Like, what's the point? If you care about winning D&D so much, you're ready to be a dick at the table, then what's the point of playing D&D at all? It is a social game, and frankly, you could put a much bigger emphasis on social than game there. Otherwise, you might as well play something by yourself like Skyrim, which is a great option. Okay, look, I get that it can be really frustrating to put a ton of hard work into crafting your world and story and coming up with maps and encounters just to have the players burn through everything with like super broken abilities and cheesing and metagaming the game. I get it, okay? There isn't a DM out there that's been running games any length of time that hasn't encountered these issues at some point or another, but there's always better ways to approach these problems than just being a dick to your players and being an adversarial dungeon master. And one more tip on the adversarial dungeon master topic. Here's something I highly, highly, highly recommend you guys avoid, particularly when it comes to powerful magical items in the game. Whatever you do, don't just steal it from the players. And this goes for breaking it too, having it fall into lava, whatever, okay? Don't just take it away and think that all of your problems are over, because your players are going to feel like you are cheating them and the game. And the moment the trust goes out the window, guys, the moment it's out the window, the campaign can only go downhill from there. The moment your players no longer trust their DM, the campaign will never get better from that point on. Now, having said that, you can steal powerful magic items from the campaign and from the players, But, and a big but, you need to transition the campaign to make the next few sessions or even the remaining campaign about that plot line. If you're taking away a powerful magical item to now make your campaign plot about recovering said item with the intention, guys, with the intention that your players will have the chance to actually recover that item, then you can totally steal from your players. That's fine. But that has to be a clear distinction from just, oops, this item's broken, let's just take it away with GM fiat. And if you do decide to steal from your players, make sure that you give them plenty of leads to the point that they have a direction or idea that the item might even be recoverable at all. Otherwise, they're probably going to think, oh, it's just gone and the DM is playing against us now. For example, if something disappears while they sleep, okay, have another NPC come up and tell them they noticed a shady looking character following the party through the town or watching them at the tower or at the tavern, and then give your players a description of that NPC. Now, instead of feeling like their dungeon master just took away their awesome toy because it was too good, the players are now thinking about how can they get it back and who might have taken it. So, dungeon masters, lay out those breadcrumbs, okay? Tip number 3 is an oldie but goodie, and it's applicable to dealing with issues where the players are just cheesing their way through the campaign with either their abilities or perhaps even that powerful artifact or two, and that's to focus on the other aspects of the campaign, like roleplay or exploration, or perhaps even the mystery of the story. I mean, basically what we want to do is we want to come up with problems that can't be simply solved with a sword or powerful fireball spell. These can be things where the players, maybe they need to work their way through a puzzle dungeon. Always one of my absolute favorite. I love puzzle dungeons. Perhaps they are caught between two factions that they are trying to prevent a war from breaking out between. Maybe they get trapped in the Underdark with powerful enemies so far beyond their capabilities that no matter how powerful they are for their level, they have to change their goals and shift them from fight the problem to death to, holy crap, we've got to figure out a way to survive and just escape this place. Whatever complications you decide to present to them, the point is, in essence, to concede to the players with how strong they are, but simply move the goalposts. Instead of fighting fire with fire, we're simply challenging them in ways where their biggest strengths, aka maybe the amount of damage they can soak up, or their high armor class combined with the sentinel feat, or whatever other cheesy thing they're trying to do, that doesn't help them solve the current problem. So introduce political intrigue, take their beloved background NPCs hostage, make them stop and solve a puzzle while they are fighting off a horde of undead zombies. And that in turn leads us to tip number 4, which is just to lean into it. Understanding when a party is super powerful and leaning into it instead of worrying about protecting your campaign and your story and your fragile big bad evil guys is a step of growth for dungeon masters. I really mean that. It can be easy. It can be really easy to stress and worry and scrutinize your players' abilities and powerful artifacts that they have at their disposal and fret over just how strong they are for their level. But the sign of a mature dungeon master is one that will roll with the punches and lean into just how powerful the party has become. For me, I personally take the approach of, great, cool, you guys are super strong. Now I don't have to worry about protecting you with balanced encounters. Instead of being mad about the players abusing or even just using their strong abilities frequently, I find it is freeing. It is basically a sign for me that I get to open up the full playbook of monsters and tricks. I get to have my NPCs play even smarter like I would and set traps and ambushes. I can send in a big wave of enemies at once instead of trickling them in slower when I know that I have a party that's capable of throwing multiple huge AoEs in a single turn. Another great example is the flying broom. A flying broom is one of my favorite items to give out to players and make available for them to purchase. I sell them at my Magic Missler video up here somewhere for just 400 gold pieces. I want my players to be able to afford them and do crazy stuff and break campaign encounters with them. But instead of stressing out that they are now kiting the enemies with them, and now they can just zip up the side of a mountain whenever they want, skipping those Yeti battles that I might have planned, I now get to have Peritons and Griffins and Chimeras and flying air elementals engage in fights in the sky with the party. I mean, come on, doesn't that sound so much more fun? Instead of letting this item break the campaign, lean into it. Even if that changes the campaign, that's okay. All you have to do is slightly adapt and adjust to suit the new circumstances instead of being stubborn by forcing the original campaign path onto the players and feeling depressed because they are basically in easy mode now, leaving you with a broken D&D campaign. So just let the party do awesome stuff and let them feel powerful. When your players are abusing a class ability or a powerful item, throw out the CR2s and 3s and let them take on dragons and demons and liches instead. Lean into it and adapt. Okay, tip number 5 is a really good one, and that is to barter with them. This is an option that a lot of dungeon masters simply overlook. Instead of feeling like an adversarial dungeon master by stealing the items from your players or breaking it that you may have accidentally gave them without realizing how powerful it was and how it was going to break your campaign, barter with them and have an NPC make them an offer that they can't refuse, or maybe they just don't want to refuse. I mean, you don't have to do it under the guise of do this or get shanked, but you can always try to entice them into giving up that item for something else. Something maybe even more powerful, but something that won't continue to break your D&D game in quite the exact same way. Is the Mithril Plate Mail of plus 28 awesomeness breaking your campaign because the party tank is now basically invulnerable while not having any of the normal heavy armor drawbacks? Okay, fine. Have an NPC buy it from him by trading him a flying wizard tower. Is the party going to abuse the wizard tower and tank it all over the Sword Coast? Absolutely. Sure they are. But who cares? Now you can have those aerial battles you've always wanted to, and the tank might still be very tanky with his replacement armor or with whatever he replaces it with, but he won't be invulnerable. I could come up with, 50 examples, but I think you guys get the point. If you get the chance, just barter with your PCs and see if you can't pry that dreaded item from their hands willingly. They feel awesome because you didn't just steal it or break it while getting something else really cool. And you feel great because the item or items you offer will give you completely different plot hooks and storylines to follow up on now. And finally, tip number 6 is to just talk with your players. It always amazes me how often DMs bring up broken campaigns in our one-on-one meetings, and then when I ask if hey, have you spoken to your players yet? They almost always tell me, no, I haven't spoken to them. I think more times than not, these DMs are afraid of pulling back the curtain too much and admitting that managing the campaign is getting a little harder for them, like that's admitting failure or something. But talking to your players should always be an option on the table. I find that by simply pulling aside a player and speaking to them calmly without accusing them of abusing game mechanics purposefully out of spite, you can almost always get them to work with you in some way if you explain what you're seeing from your point of view. Pulling aside a player and saying, Scott, listen, can you help me? I'm really struggling with how to deal with the way the party is currently using this amulet of the plains you guys found. And I was hoping we could talk about coming up with a solution together. I mean, did you guys hear that? That's powerful. And I'd say it just like that. Scott, can you help me? That brings an entire different tone than you saying, bro, you guys are using that amulet I gave you way too much and I gotta nerf that shit. So be cordial and calm. Don't accuse your players of breaking your campaign and ask them to help. Odds are they'll be willing to work with you. Okay, now I want to ask you guys, what got left off this list? What are some tips and ways that you have addressed a campaign that was borderline broken, or maybe it was definitely broken? Did you steal stuff from them? Did you break their big fancy toy? Did you nerf their class abilities? Did you talk with them? What'd you guys do? I'd love to see what examples you guys have as well. I promise I will be reading those and kind of going through and seeing how you guys handled all those different situations. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I would love to have you subscribe. I put out videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. I, of course, want to give a massive thank you to all of the incredible patrons over at Welcome Adventures. Thank you guys so much. By doing what you do, you allow me to do what I love to do over here. And for that, I'm so incredibly grateful. If you guys like what I do here, you want to support more content and snag some rewards for yourself, welcomeadventures.com is the best place to do that. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.